Hidden truth revealed. Wife's shocking courtroom encounter with her lover transforms everything. The courtroom buzzed with suffocating tension the day Sarah stepped forward to face the music. The air crackled with judgment as neighbors eyed her, their whispers like sharp knives that cut at her heart. The perfect life she had crafted in the quaint town of Maple Grove unraveled in just one moment, a single betrayal sparking a wildfire of gossip and betrayal. How had it come to this? Sarah was a devoted wife and mother, living a seemingly charmed life. But her laughter often masked the loneliness that settled deep in her bones, like a stubborn chill that refused to leave. Tom, her husband, was a good man, a hard-working mechanic who spent long days at the garage, sacrificing his evenings to provide for their family. But Sarah often felt like she was standing in a shadow, invisible and aching for connection. Then came Mike, the new entrepreneur in town, with his charming smile and wild spirit. He made her feel seen, alive. What began as innocent chats turned into something deeper, something she never meant to let bloom. As she stood there waiting to testify, she thought back to all those moments with Mike. Each touch felt like both an escape and a prison, woven with threads of regret. Before we continue, she thought to herself, the tension thickening, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The weight of everyone's eyes pushed against her as she stood before the judge. Each word she spoke felt heavy, laden with both truth and deception. I loved him, she whispered, feeling the room inhale sharply. But that love twisted into something I never wanted. I hurt Tom, I hurt my family. Her voice trembled as she looked into the crowd. Tom's expression was a mask of disappointment and betrayal, pain etched across his features like a landscape flooded after a storm. As she recounted her spiraling journey, emotions in the room surged like a tide. Dogged murmurs filled the air, fueled by unfounded judgments masquerading as righteous anger. To Sarah, it was palpable. She could almost taste the bitterness, as if everyone were feasting on her heart, wanting to grasp the turmoil that had unveiled itself. Details emerged that shocked even the most gossipy residents of Maple Grove. Mike's struggles with addiction, failures that had followed him like shadows. In that courtroom, clearly defined lines blurred as the townsfolk wrestled with compassion for Mike and disdain for Sarah. The real truth of their small-town lives hung in the air, revealing scars that lay hidden beneath layers of civility. Suddenly, the silence shattered. A briefcase was thrust onto the table, a letter from Mike that could unravel everything. It lay there like a ticking time bomb, ready to defy all that Sarah believed. Would it break the fragile bond of trust so painstakingly built with Tom, or could it somehow coax back the love that once flourished? The questions hung in the air, as delicate as freshly fallen snow, waiting for a heart to crack open and let loose the storm of emotions trapped inside. The courtroom was a crucible of emotion, teetering on the brink of chaos as Sarah's heart raced. She could feel the heat radiating off the briefcase, the letter inside it a silent witness to her transgressions. Tom's eyes were piercing. They bore into her with a mixture of pain and anger that made her stomach churn. It was as though she were being stripped bare, exposed not just to him, but to the entire town. Moments hung like thick clouds, and whispers swirled around her. What would it say? What would Mike's words do? She stole a quick glance at Tom, his hands clenched into fists on the table. The muscles in his jaw ticked rhythmically, a bitter metronome counting down to a truth that could, potentially, shatter everything they had. Sarah, do you want to read it? The judge's steady voice cut through the noise, returning her breath to her lungs, though it felt like she was breathing in shards of glass. She shook her head, unsure if she could bring herself to confront the remnants of her past. For a moment, she clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, the letter could offer redemption instead of condemnation. Enough of the playing with our lives. Let her read it. Someone shouted from the crowd. Her pulse quickened. Who would dare? She could feel the eyes of the entire town on her. She was a puppet now, strings pulled by an unseen hand. But each heartbeat reminded her that this was her story, and she as the author still had a say. With a shuddering breath, she reached for the briefcase. It felt heavy, weighted with expectation. Tentative fingers brushed the leather, and she felt a surge of resolve. No more pretending. No more hiding. I will read it, she said suddenly, her voice stronger than she felt. The crowd quieted, each set of eyes focused intently on her. She opened the briefcase and pulled out the letter, its envelope crinkling loudly in the stillness. She hesitated when she saw Mike's familiar handwriting. Memories flooded back, laughs shared, moments stolen, the way he could make her forget her loneliness. But with those memories came a crushing guilt, making her throat tighten. Taking a breath, she tore open the envelope. The letter unfolded slowly, each word a dagger of remembrance. As she began to read aloud, the room seemed to spin. Mike's words painted a vivid picture of the person he used to be, the struggles he faced, his apologies spilling like ink on paper. He spoke of love, of regret, and an unshakable desire for her happiness. Dear Sarah, the words played through her mind as she spoke them, but the reality felt skewed. Mike wanted her to know he understood her feelings of loneliness. He wanted her to find freedom, even if it meant walking away from him. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Tom's voice was barely a whisper. It cut through her like her own thoughts, painful and raw. Would it mean anything to him? Would he feel the ache of compassion for a man who had stolen something precious from their life? Or would it only tear wider the rift that had formed between them? As she finished the letter, the silence pressed in around her, suffocating and intoxicating. The crowd was alive with murmurs, confusion blending with sympathy. In that moment, Sarah felt the weight of every decision, every moment that had led her to this stark sunlight of truth. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she glanced at Tom. What lay ahead remained uncertain, a tangled web of forgiveness and love, but something had shifted. The truth had taken root, but had it sowed seeds of hope? As the courtroom buzzed around her, she knew one thing: she had to confront the remnants of their relationship, the bond that had to either be rebuilt or shattered completely. In that moment, it was clear: love demands a price. Would Sarah be willing to pay it? And what would it cost them both? The tension in the courtroom was electric, charged with unspoken words and frayed emotions. Sarah's heart thudded in her chest, each beat echoing the uncertainty of the moment. She couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed, but she didn't know how. As her gaze flitted back to Tom, she saw the tumultuous emotions flicker across his face: hurt, confusion, anger. Is that it? Tom's voice broke through the whispers. Is that all you have to offer? The biting edge of his tone hit her like a cold wind on a sunny day. She hadn't expected this reaction. She had hoped for understanding, perhaps even a glimmer of forgiveness. Instead, she felt the foundation of their lives cracking beneath her. Tom, she started, her voice barely a murmur. No, you don't get to say my name like that. Not after all this. His fists bunched tighter as if they were the only thing keeping him together. The heat of his rage mingled with the cool ambience of the courtroom, creating a tempest of human emotion. Sarah's hands shook, and she folded the letter, placing it gently back in the briefcase. The contents felt like a bomb that had detonated in her life, leaving debris scattered everywhere. The town's eyes remained locked on her, a judgment passed without a word, without a trial. She could feel their accusations, their sympathy, and their curiosity like knives. Tom, please, her words faltered. She wanted to reach out, to connect, but how do you bridge a chasm carved out by betrayal? You've read it, you've played your part. Now I have to play mine. His voice was icy, deliberate. Tom turned to the judge, his determination unshakable. I want to take the stand. The murmurs escalated, a transfer of anticipation rippling through the spectators. What more could he reveal? Would he unleash the truth in a wave that would drown her? He moved with purpose, a wounded animal poised for confrontation. Tom, wait. She pleaded, instinct telling her to stop him, but he was already on his feet, striding toward the front of the room with a hunger for clarity. The judge nodded, and Tom took his place, trying to steady himself against the onslaught of emotions cascading through him. "Your Honor," he began, his voice steady, though it shook at the edges. "I don't know how we arrived here, but I do know this: our lives can't be defined by one mistake." He stole a glance at Sarah, and it haunted her. There was pain there, but something more: a flicker of longing, an echo of love. "If we're going to move forward, we need to confront everything." Sarah's heart ached. Was it possible to begin anew? Could they sift through the ruins together? She thought of the promise of hope that Mike had written about. But was it just a dream? Tom's next words would make that decision clearer. "I thought I knew everything about Sarah, but I was blind to her struggles." His voice cracked. "She had to bear the weight alone, and I took that for granted. I never saw how lonely she truly was." The words echoed in the silence, unearthing deep-seated feelings in the courtroom, wresting empathy from those who stood judge and jury. Tom's honesty was a painful revelation, and it opened the floodgates of emotion. As he continued, Sarah felt tears pooling in her eyes, blurring her vision. This wasn't just a courtroom, it was a place of reckoning. The truth had morphed into something bigger than either of them. It was raw, it was real, and it demanded to be faced. She could finally see it now: the love that had once seemed lost amidst the chaos might still be alive, flickering weakly but refusing to be extinguished. But would it be enough? Could they frighten away the shadows of betrayal with honesty? The horizon of their relationship loomed ahead, endlessly complicated and frightening. The next step would deliver a direction, but knew it wouldn't be easy. As the courtroom waited, hushed in anticipation, Sarah felt the weight of her choices pressing down. This was the moment that could lead them to healing or irreversible destruction. What would Tom choose next? And would she have the courage to follow him? Tom stood at the front of the courtroom, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the charged silence. He could feel every gaze borne to him, a mixture of scrutiny and sympathy that heightened his vulnerability. The unyielding reality of their relationship pressed down on him, but as he searched for the right words, he also searched for the courage to break through the jagged barriers that had formed between him and Sarah. "Everyone thinks they know the whole story," he continued, drawing strength from within. "They see the surface, the betrayal, the pain, but they don't see the cracks in our foundation." His voice wavered again, revealing his own fragility. "I was too caught up in my world to see how much Sarah was suffering. I didn't notice her walls rising higher. And I should have fought harder to bring them down." This was the honesty Sarah had longed for, a reflection of her own hidden struggles laid bare before the courtroom. Her breath caught, and for a moment, she could almost believe they were moving towards something transformative. "This isn't just about a mistake," Tom said, his gaze locking onto Sarah's, as if they were the only two people in the room. "It's about understanding that mistakes come from places of pain. I didn't know how to be what Sarah needed. I never even asked." A murmur rippled through the crowd. This level of vulnerability wasn't typical in a courtroom. It felt raw, real, something beautiful in its imperfect honesty. Sarah felt her heart swell, caught in the delicate balance between desperation and hope. "What if, and I know this is a big what if, we carved out a space to heal?" Tom's words were a lifeline tossed in turbulent waters. "What if we stopped hiding behind our mistakes and faced them together?" A tremor of fear clawed at Sarah's heart. Could they really start again, knowing the depth of their pain? Could she trust him after everything? As the thoughts swirled in her mind, the judge interrupted. "Mr. Anderson, you need to focus on the facts." "Your Honor, I'm speaking from my heart," Tom insisted, his resolve unwavering. "The facts may define the past, but our choices shape the future." Sarah's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she absorbed his every word. She could see the reflection of their love in his eyes, a love tarnished but not extinguished. There was an honesty in his vulnerability that made her ache in all the right ways. "Maybe I'm the one who needs to step up," she whispered to herself, bolstered by the truth radiating from Tom. She realized this was her chance to be honest too, to say the things that had remained trapped inside her for too long. Rising slowly, Sarah hesitated for a moment, heart racing, taking the desire for her own truth boldly to the front of the room. The courtroom went still again, eyes now shifting to her, questioning, waiting for her next move. "Tom," she began, every word hanging in the air like a fragile promise. What if we open those doors together, no matter how painful it gets? What if we let them see not just our failures, but our fight to reclaim what we lost? This wasn't just about the letter or the courtroom drama, it was about something deeper, a longing for connection that went beyond their mistakes. A chance to heal. She glanced at the faces around her, needing their support, their understanding, but her eyes found Tom S. instead. In that moment, she knew they were both willing to face the light and the darkness to get through this. But just when she thought they could find their way, a figure appeared at the back of the courtroom. It was Mike, the man whose words had sparked this entire reckoning, and he was staring straight at them. What did he want now? Sarah's stomach twisted in knots. Would his presence strengthen their resolve or rip them apart all over again? The tension surged as the uncertainty loomed, and Sarah felt as if their fragile moment was dangling over a precipice. Could they withstand another storm? Tom's heart lurched as he saw Mike standing there, looming and intense, making the fragile moment feel even more frail. Mike's presence crackled in the air like static before a storm. He felt Sarah's tension beside him, like a heavy chain ready to snap. Someone cleared their throat, but the sound felt insignificant compared to the electric silence that followed. What do you want? Sarah's voice sliced through the stillness, shaky yet resolute. She wasn't backing down. The entire room held its breath, waiting for Mike's answer, but even he seemed caught off guard. I just came to listen, Mike said, though his tone suggested otherwise. There was something unnerving about the way he looked at them, a mix of challenge and an echo of regret. But I'm not stepping away. This affects me too. Tom exchanged a fleeting look with Sarah. The connection they shared felt tangible, yet the pressure from Mike's words threatened to fracture it. Frustration bubbled in him. You have no right to intrude on this. He snapped, his voice growing louder, fueled by emotion. The courtroom breathed in with his anger, the audience caught in a web of rising tension. Maybe I have every right, Mike countered, his expression hardening. We can't rewrite history just because you want to move on. Tom stepped forward, adrenaline coursing through him. It's not just about you or me. Sarah deserves to be heard. He turned back to Sarah. And we all deserve to heal. So what? Mike shot back, stepping closer, his intensity palpable. You think this is a happy ending? It's just a chapter in a much darker book. Those words hit home, sending shockwaves through the room. Sarah felt like she was on a seesaw, and every rebuttal threatened to tip her over the edge. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. Could they really work through the pain without facing the truth? Mike, she began softly, her voice almost a whisper. You're right. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, but I refuse to let our past define my future. I want to fight for what's good. You think this is good? Mike spat, clearly agitated. All it takes is one blunder, one weakness, and it all crumbles. You've seen it in us. In yourself. That's true, Tom threw back, fighting desperation with conviction. But we can learn. That's what this moment is about. Acknowledging our wounds doesn't mean we'll bleed forever. The gavel rapped sharply as the judge interjected. Let us maintain decorum, please. Sarah's heart thudded, the rhythm matching the mounting chaos around her. She felt compelled to do something to address not only Tom, but also the reality of Mike's words. Maybe you're both right, she started, her voice gathering strength, even if her heart quaked. But standing here, I realize that pain doesn't have to stop us. We can transform what we have left. We can save what's worth saving. You think you can just rewrite your story? Mike pressed, but there was a slight crack in his stoic facade, a hint of vulnerability she hadn't expected. Yes, she replied, meeting his gaze with determination. We both can. I'm willing to show up and make it happen. Are you? Around them, the murmurs grew louder, a murmur of shared pain, shared histories. Sarah's words echoed. Standing tall against the shadows, was there hope left between these three people tied by secrets and heartaches? Tom reached for Sarah's hand, squeezing it tightly. The warmth anchored her, a reminder that their connection hadn't been extinguished, despite everything. Before anyone could respond, Mike's expression shifted, caught between regret and a deeper realization. Maybe he hadn't come here just to disrupt their healing, but to seek it for himself, too. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation, the lines between love, betrayal, and forgiveness becoming increasingly blurred. What if Sarah's confession could lead to more than just mending a broken bond? As the air grew heavier, she felt things shift like a tide ready to turn. Would Mike's presence ignite the spark of revelation and transformation that could save them all? The moment hung in suspense, like a poised feather ready to fall. Could they really face their truths together? The buzz in the courtroom intensified. Tension wrapped around everyone like a thick fog. Sarah stood there, her heart pounding in rhythm with the buzz of murmurs swirling around her. She could see glimpses of compassion in the eyes of bystanders, some whispering silent encouragement, while others appeared frozen in disbelief. Everyone deserves to have their story told, Sarah stated, her voice rising slightly above the murmurs. Especially when it involves the people we care about. She searched Mike's gaze, willing him to see the sincerity in her soul. Care? Mike scoffed, though the bitterness in his voice felt more like a shield than a weapon. Do you really think that's what this is about? Care? You've moved on, but I'm still here in the debris. His frustration erupted, echoing in the silence of the courtroom, causing the judge to glance at him with a raised brow. Maybe you're the one clinging to the past, Mike, Tom interjected, the heat of his anger visible in his clenched fists. Sarah is trying to take steps forward. Are you willing to join her? Or is it easier to stay bitter? Forward? Mike laughed. You think you can just walk away from all this? He waved his hand around the room as if signaling to the ghosts of their shared history hovering in the air. You're breaking the foundation of who we were, and his voice faltered. For a moment, the bravado fell away, and the weariness showed through. Sadness etched into his features. Beneath the rage, there was a shared grief that connected them, all the shattered dreams, the moments that once brought them hope, now twisted into memories haunted by regret. Can we talk? Just the three of us? Sarah's voice trembled, her resolve slowly transforming into something more vulnerable. We can't keep shouting across a canyon. That won't fix anything. The shift in her tone seemed to reach Mike on some level. He hesitated, eyes flickering between anger and a flicker of longing. You mean here? Now? Yes, she pressed, the fire of her determination rekindling. If it's not here, when? Do you want to keep living with this weight hanging over us? I just don't want to get hurt again, he admitted, like a confession falling from his lips, raw and desperate. For a moment, the corridor of hope lingered, fragile yet present. The crowd felt it, too. The tension shifted from hostility to something softer. Shared pain turned into a collective acknowledgement, flickering in the air like candlelight. Tom stepped forward, determination etched in his expression. Staying silent and angry hasn't helped either of you. Maybe now is the time to talk about what truly happened. Not just the pain, but the truth that lies beneath it. Mike flinched, the words cutting too deep. You think I haven't faced the truth? I've been haunted by it day and night. But maybe that's the problem, Sarah suggested gently. What if we faced it together? No more secrets, just honesty. Tears threatened to spill as Mike weighed his options, the urge to guard himself at war with the desire for peace. The audience waited, anticipation simmering just under the surface. The judge cleared their throat again, but this time it felt like a mere formality. The stall was broken, and the courtroom felt charged, as if waiting for the first drops of rain in a long drought. Okay, Mike finally said. Let us talk. The simple yet profound act of agreement shifted the atmosphere in the courtroom, eliciting a collective sigh of onlookers relieved to see progress. In that heartbeat of vulnerability, Sarah sensed the potential for redemption growing. But as they began to uncover layers of their past, shadows of the untold truths loomed larger. Would they be able to confront what truly divided them? As they prepared to face the deeper scars that echoed through their shared history, a single thought lingered: how many truths would they uncover, and could it be enough to heal their fractures? The moment felt precarious, as if they were all being pulled by forces unseen. Would love and the need for healing be enough to guide them forward? As the murmurs of the courtroom faded into a tense silence, Sarah took a breath, grounding herself in the moment. This was no longer just a legal dispute, it felt like a pivotal chapter in their lives. Here stood Mike, just a few feet away, each man fighting his own war behind the tangled emotions and hurt. "Let us be honest, okay?" Sarah spoke again, her tone soft but firm. "We're not here to hurt each other. We need to repair what's been broken." She looked at Mike, who now shuffled uncomfortably. The facade of indifference was beginning to crack, and she could feel the weight of his pain and regret. Mike shifted on his feet, his eyes clouded as thoughts raced through his mind. "Repair, huh? You think it's that easy?" He scoffed, but there was a tremor in his voice. "You think everything can just be pieced back together from the wreckage?" "Maybe not everything," Tom chimed in, stepping in closer, anchoring Mike's gaze with a steady seriousness. "But isn't it worth a shot? You both deserve closure and maybe even healing." The crowd around them held their breath, the air heavy with expectation. Each spectator could feel the stakes rising, a communal yearning for resolution that echoed from the riveting past to the uncertain future. Sarah stepped forward, her heart on her sleeve. "Mike, what if we start with where it all fell apart? I can't heal if I don't understand." The tremor in her voice told the tale of her struggles. This wasn't just about him looking back, but also about her inviting him to walk those worn paths together. Mike faltered, his eyes narrowing as memories cascaded over him. "You want to talk about the day I found out?" "The day he shook his head, refusing to let the darkness take hold. It shattered everything." The rawness in his voice uncurled the tension, opening a door they all needed to walk through. "I want to understand your pain, Mike," she implored, feeling the weight of his sorrow like a palpable thing between them. "I never wanted to hurt you, but I also can't ignore what happened. We have to face it. Together." "What did you want me to do?" His voice was thick with emotion. "You were already gone. My life, it was in shambles. I was nothing but a ghost." The bitterness that had been a shield for so long was boiling over, yet the crack that had let so much anger in now allowed sorrow to spill out. Tom watched, a mix of hope and caution mirrored in his expression. "This pain, it's part of the truth you both need to confront," he said gently. "But it doesn't have to keep defining you. Can we put the anger aside long enough to figure this out?" Silence hung, heavy like a thick blanket. Sarah's heartbeat thudded in her ears, an echo of the past beckoning her to join hands once more with the man who still, despite everything, held a piece of her heart. "Mike," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. "If we can talk about the hurt, we can start to heal. I'm ready to face it all with you, but you need to meet me there." Mike's forehead creased as he thought it through. Could he trust her again, trust them? The courtroom was a vessel brimming with emotions, and he was drifting into deeper waters without a life raft. "Fine," he finally said, his voice low but clear, layering their earnestness with collaborative intention. "I'll talk." The court erupted with murmurs, a soft thunder of relief and concern scattering through the crowd. This was just the beginning, a flicker of light in a long, dark tunnel. As they prepared to peel back the layers, each unspoken truth crackled in the air. Secrets that had the power to both devastate and liberate lingered like the electricity before a storm. But as they stood there, tethered to the moment, one question crystallized in Sarah's mind. Would their willingness to face the truth be enough to guide them through the storm? The courtroom, filled with hushed anticipation, held its breath for what would be revealed next. Would the truth shatter them, or would it offer a path toward healing? Mike took a deep breath, the weight of the room pressing down on him. The nervous murmurs faded as he swallowed hard, ready to let words spill forth that had been locked inside him for so long. He could feel Sarah's eyes on him, searching, pleading, as if she could see the chaos just beneath his surface. "This isn't just about us anymore," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "It was everything. The day I found out you were leaving, I lost myself. I was angry. I was hurt. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to make it hurt the way I was hurting. But what was the point? I thought I had to build walls." His confession hung in the air, a fragile thread woven through the silence. Each spectator leaned forward, eager for the thread to unravel, wondering if healing would be found in the gaps left by loss. I didn't just lose you, he continued, his voice harder now, yet tinged with vulnerability. I lost the future we had. The dreams we painted together. All those plans gone. He felt the lump rising in his throat, but pressed on. And I didn't know how to live in a world where those dreams didn't exist anymore. Tears pooled in Sarah's eyes, not from pity but from the connection that ache of shared pain. She had carried her own sorrow, a burden woven with guilt and regret. I know, Mike, she said softly. I didn't realize how shattered you were. I was so lost myself I thought leaving would be easier for both of us. He shook his head, emotions spilling over. Easier? It felt like betrayal. Like at that moment, I wasn't worth fighting for. And I was too proud or maybe too broken to ask you to stay. As Mike's defenses fell away, the courtroom felt electrified by truth. Tom maintained a supportive presence, his eyes darting between them, encouraging the raw honesty that was finally surfacing. You both have carried your pain for too long, he said gently. It's time to share it freely. Sarah drew a shaky breath, her heart racing. I never wanted to turn my back on you. I thought I was doing what was best for both of us, but what I didn't see was how deeply it would cut. I can't undo the past, but I can try to show you how much I regret it. Mike's gaze softened, the sharp edges of his anger beginning to blur with understanding. Do you know what it's like to feel invisible? To think the person you loved didn't even shed a tear for what we lost? That was my reality. In that moment, the courtroom faded away, leaving just the two of them standing on the precipice of healing. I can't promise it will all magically get better, Sarah replied, her voice stronger now. But I'm ready to fight, to feel, to be seen. With you. Mike looked deep into her eyes, searching for the sincerity he desperately needed. A flicker of hope ignited within him. I want that too, I do, but it's not just about us trying to fix this. There was a reason things fell apart. It can't just be wrapped up in a neat bow after one talk. He hesitated, vulnerability creeping in, can it? The weight of his question filled the room, a deep-rooted fear and desire intertwining. Would this moment be the start of mending or merely the first crack in an already fragile structure? As their eyes locked, Sarah felt a swell of determination. It's a process, Mike, she said, her tone steady now. One step at a time. But it's a path I want to walk with you. And just like that, the room transformed. The air hummed with possibilities, a charged energy that hinted at the battles still to come. They both understood that this was only the beginning. Each word would lead to more, and somewhere amidst the pain lay the foundation for something real. But just as Sarah felt hope begin to bloom, a voice from the back of the courtroom cut through the tension, changing everything. You think you can fix this? You have no idea the truth behind your breakup. They turned in unison, shock rippling across their faces as a familiar figure stepped forward, stirring emotions that had been buried deep. The one thing they both feared most was now poised to spill over, revealing even darker secrets from the past. What would this voice reveal? Would it bring them closer to healing or send them spiraling back into chaos? The courtroom fell silent, an electric tension hanging in the air as all eyes turned to the newcomer. Mark, Sarah's old friend, stepped into the light and Mike's heart sank. The figure who stood before them brought with him a storm of memories both beautiful and painful. Mark? Sarah breathed, disbelief radiating from every pore. She hadn't seen him in years, not since the day everything had unraveled. Her mind raced with confusion, twisted emotions surging like a tidal wave threatening to crash. The audience murmured softly, the atmosphere heavy with anticipation. Mike clenched his fists, anger boiling just beneath the surface. What are you doing here? He demanded, his tone sharper than intended. Let me explain, Mark said, raising his hands in a placating gesture. I couldn't stay silent any longer. Not after hearing you two talk. You both deserve to know the truth. The tremor in his voice was genuine, yet it sent sparks of dread through Mike. What truth? He pressed. You've got some nerve showing up now after everything that happened. I know this isn't the right time, but it has to come out. Mark's eyes locked onto Sarah's, a depth of emotion hidden within. You don't understand the full picture. I try to protect you, but I need you to know that there's more to why you left. Mike's heart raced, emotions swirling like a cyclone within him. Could what Mark had to say undo everything they had just begun to piece together? Would it taint the fragile hope Sarah offered? What do you mean? Sarah asked, forcing herself to maintain composure. She knew Mark had become a source of confusion in her past, but it all felt so distant, clouded by memories of laughter turned to heartbreak. Mark sighed, stepping closer. It's about the night before you left. I was there. The words hung in the air, ricocheting between Mike and Sarah, both bracing for impact. You were? Sarah blinked, an array of emotions crossing her face. What does that have to do with anything? I saw you, Sarah, I saw you crying at the bar. Mark's voice softened, recalling the moment. And then I saw Mike not knowing how to reach you. You were too lost in your own head. I just thought maybe if I stepped in, it would help. I never wanted to hurt either of you. Incredible, Mike scoffed, sarcasm dripping from his words. So you think butting and putting yourself at the center of it all was going to help? You don't understand anything. Enough. Sarah shouted, her voice trembling but filled with an unexpected strength. Mark, I appreciated your concern back then. But now you're just tearing open old wounds that I thought we were trying to heal. Mark struggled to find his words. You don't know how deep it goes, Sarah. Not just what I saw, but what I heard, he continued, glancing between them. I know something about Mike, something that changed everything. Time stood still. Mike's gut twisted with dread, sweat trickling down the back of his neck as Mark's gaze intensified, searching for a connection, a pathway to reconciliation through the fog of past mistakes. Stop, please, Mike urged, his voice barely above a whisper. What could you possibly say that would help? Mark inhaled deeply, ready to reveal everything. It's about your dad, Mike. And the real reason you fell apart. A collective gasp filled the room. The shock weighed heavily, and, suddenly, the ground Mike stood on felt shaky, uncertain. What did Mark know that could change everything? With his heart racing and a sinking feeling in his chest, Mike held onto Sarah's hand tightly. Whatever truth was about to unfold could either stitch their hearts back together or tear them apart forever. Where would that door lead? Would they be able to confront the past, or would it shatter them completely? The silence following Mark's revelation was suffocating, and the questions loomed large in the air as they all stood on the edge of discovery. Mark's eyes darted nervously, but he held his ground. I never meant to get involved, but I felt I had to say something. Mike, your dad, he was struggling with things you didn't know about. And the way he treated you, it affected you more than you realized. It's why you pushed everyone away. A hush fell over the courtroom, punctuated only by the rapid beating of hearts. Mike's expression shifted, shock overwhelming the anger that had fueled his defense. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Your dad had his demons, Mark continued carefully. I heard him, the things he said when you'd visit. It was deeper than just anger. He was fighting his own battles, and you, Mark, swallowed hard, as if the weight of his words was choking him. You felt that fight. You were always trying to be what he needed, but it wasn't enough. That void, it twisted you. Made you easier to break. The crowd shifted, eyes darting between Mike and Sarah. Mike shook his head, trying to understand the connection, the magnitude of this revelation pounding through his veins. You can't just drop this on me. My dad loved me. Mark stepped closer, sincerity shining in his gaze. He did, but love isn't always straightforward. Sometimes it's clouded with pain, and you never had a chance to confront what that love really meant. Tears brimmed in Mike's eyes, shock lighting the anger with uncertainty. But I thought I had to be stronger, tougher. Yes, Mark said gently, and that made you build walls against anyone who wanted to help. Including Sarah. The words hung in the air, heavy with realization. Sarah felt something shift within her. Their dance of hurt had not just been one-sided. They had both suffered in silence. Sarah began softly, all those moments I felt like giving up on us. Did you really think stepping in back then would solve anything? Mark bowed his head, regret shadowing his features. I thought I could help you. I wanted to help you see what was happening. But I was blind to my own role in this anguish. Mike clenched his fists, torn between anger and a deep-seated desire for resolution. So what? Now I'm supposed to just forgive all this because you know some truths? What is the point? The tension in the room thickened to a breaking point. No, Sarah said, stepping closer to Mike, her voice steady yet soft. We're not forgiving just to move on. This is about acknowledging our pain and starting to heal together. Mike looked into Sarah's eyes, and for a moment, the chaos around them faded into an echo. He saw her sincerity, her unwavering belief in something better. What if we can't heal? That's the courage we have to find, she replied, feeling the warmth of his hand holding hers. We might falter, struggle, but we can move forward knowing we're trying. Mark watched them with a mix of admiration and sorrow. You need to face all of this together. For the love you have, for the relationship you want. The truth is in the cracks, waiting for you to mend. With the weight of his words, the courtroom held its breath, and the air buzzed with realization. Could they really face all that had been hidden? Would this moment be the threshold they crossed into a new beginning? Can we try? Mike whispered, vulnerability spilling into the open like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Can we really take it one step at a time? Yes, Sarah smiled gently, warmth pooling in her heart. But it starts here today. Let us face what we've been avoiding. And in that moment, something shifted. They stood together, hand in hand, not just in the courtroom of Maple Grove, but in a bond that transcended the pain. Let this be the moment we rewrite our history, she added. Let us carve out space for love to grow again. The crowd, witnessing the raw honesty unfold, filled with a hopeful murmur, a collective sense of support washing over them. As the weight of the past began to lift, it became clear they might stumble, but this was a beginning, a rebirth ignited by truth and the courage to chase healing. With their hearts open, they faced one another, eyes glistening with possibility. In the quiet tumult of the courtroom, hope dared to bloom. And just as they began to forge a new path, a voice cut through the room. You should have known love never falls away. The murmurs escalated as they turned. A figure stood at the door, amending the past, poised to challenge everything. But when they were ready to move forward, was the truth they longed for still worth facing? And now, the question lingered, would they hold tight to each other, or let it all slip away once more? This was their moment of truth, where the fog of the past might either lead them back into darkness or guide them to the light they so desperately sought. As the courtroom buzzed around them and the shadows loomed, they took a deep breath, waiting to see if they would all rise above the wreckage. Through pain, they could finally begin anew if they dared to embrace both the past and each other. This was what love demanded, after all, the willingness to face what frightens us most and the hope we could find there. Their journey had only just begun. Now we must embrace the change. So, if you felt something with this story, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will tug on your heartstrings. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us share these powerful transformations. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Your voice matters. And you need to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and know they're not alone. Don't wait not even one more second to show your support. Only true fans understand the importance of lifting others up. Let us do this together.